You know that feeling when you're just buzzing with energy, ideas flowing, ready for anything, that real zest for life?
Oh, yeah, totally. And then, well, the flip side, that heavy, dragging feeling. Even small things feel huge.
Exactly. So today we're diving deep into what fuels that inner fire, that vitality, this whole idea of, life energy.
Right. We're going to explore what drives our get up and go. We've got a source that really looks at practical ways to maybe reignite that spark when it feels like it's dimming a bit.
Yeah, our source, it offers some really concrete strategies, things you can actually do to reconnect. But, as we're also going to zoom out a little.
Mm.
We want to tackle that big question. Is life energy actually real? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, looking at it from different angles. So biology, sure, but also traditional ideas, ancient wisdom, and some, well, pretty interesting new research that's emerging.
So the goal today really is to give you a kind of shortcut, a way to understand these different facets of life energy.
What works practically to boost your own vitality
Yeah.
day to day, and also exploring some of those bigger, maybe more fundamental questions around it all.
What does it mean for you for how you experience being alive, energized?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start somewhere really down to earth, tuning inward. Our source really hammers home how crucial self-awareness is. Like the absolute first step.
Yeah, it's about becoming a really good observer
Yeah.
of your own internal world,
Yeah. What does that look like in practice?
Well, noticing what activities genuinely give you energy and what consistently leaves you feeling wiped out.
Mm.
It takes paying attention, really paying attention.
And one key thing the source mentions is identifying your passions. Those things where time just vanishes, right?
hmm You're totally absorbed, and afterwards you feel good,
Yeah.
energized, not drained.
What's the mechanism there? Why does that happen?
Well, studies in positive psychology suggest that when you're doing things that align with your uh, natural strengths and your deep values, your brain releases things like dopamine.
Yeah.
And that creates this positive loop, right? It fuels you, makes it feel less like effort. So thinking about what makes you feel genuinely alive, curious, those are big clues.
That makes so much sense. Like getting lost in a great book, hours pass, but you feel richer, not tired.
Exactly.
The source also talks about recognizing your values. How do they play into energy levels?
Well, living in line with your core principles, it gives you this deep sense of integrity,
Mm,
purpose.
right.
But when your actions clash with what you truly believe, that creates this internal friction, cognitive dissonance, they call it.
And that friction takes energy.
A lot of energy.
Mm.
You're either trying to justify what you did or push down the value you ignored. It's a major, major drain
Wow. So living by your values isn't just about morality, it's actually about energy management.
in a fundamental way, yes.
Okay. And the last bit of tuning inward is listening to your body. Seems obvious, but maybe it's not. The source mentions different kinds of fatigue.
Yeah, that's key. It's not just physical tiredness, like after a run. You've got to recognize emotional fatigue, mental fatigue, too.
Almost burnout.
Exactly. Sometimes that drained feeling isn't muscle soreness, it's from chronic stress, worry, just mental overload. Telling the difference between healthy tired and draining fatigue.
Hmm.
That's vital.
Got it. So tune inward. Passions, values, body signals. What's next for reigniting that spark, according to the source?
The next big piece is cultivating meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The source really points out that feeling adrift, lacking direction, that itself is super energy depleting.
Yeah, like treading water, right. Using energy but going nowhere. It feels pointless. So how do we find that purpose? The source talks about exploring your why.
Yeah, asking yourself, okay, what kind of impact do I want to have? Even small ways count. What problems do I actually care about?
And connecting daily stuff to that.
Exactly. Connecting your daily tasks, even the boring ones, to that bigger picture. It transforms them. They're not just chores. They're contributions to something meaningful to you.
That's a powerful reframe. Okay, doing the dishes isn't just dishes, it's creating a comfortable home space, maybe.
Precisely. If that aligns with a value for you, like caring for your space or family,
The source also mentions setting intentions. How does that help focus energy?
intentions act like a compass. For the day, for a project, whatever. It gives your energy direction, focus, creates momentum.
Even small ones.
Even simple intentions, like I intend to be really present in this meeting. It brings focus and, surprisingly, energy to that specific interaction.
Okay. And the last part of this meaning section, connecting with something larger than yourself. Spirituality, community, nature.
Yeah, what's the energy source there? It seems to be about belonging, interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Feeling part of something bigger combats that sense of
Yeah.
isolation or feeling insignificant, which are huge energy drains.
So whether it's awe in nature or camaraderie in a group or a spiritual connection, it gives context.
A broader context for your life, your actions,
Yeah.
that itself is energizing.
Okay, so we've got tuning inward, finding meaning. Now for the nuts and bolts, the foundation, nurturing well-being. The source uses that car analogy. Fuel and maintenance.
Yeah, it's a great analogy, isn't it? You just can't expect peak performance, abundant energy if the basics aren't covered.
So physical health first.
Absolutely. Prioritizing it, wholesome food, moving your body in ways you actually enjoy, getting enough sleep, hydration. These aren't just nice to haves, they're fundamental for energy.
Right, you can be passionate and purposeful, but if you're physically running on fumes, it's tough.
An uphill battle, definitely.
And what about the mental side, mental clarity?
The cluttered mind racing, thoughts, worries, unresolved stuff. It's like an energy leak, constantly draining you.
So practices like mindfulness help.
Yeah, mindfulness, doing mentally stimulating things you like, managing stress,
Hmm.
maybe meditation, maybe just walking in the park. It's about quieting that internal noise that eats up your focus and vitality.
And then emotional well-being, often overlooked maybe, fostering emotional resilience.
Hugely important. Unprocessed emotions, difficult relationships, constantly beating yourself up. It's incredibly draining.
So resilience comes from.
Healthy ways to process feelings,
Yeah.
nurturing positive relationships, self-compassion, being kind to yourself when things are hard and, asking for help when you need it. It creates a more stable inner world, less baggage weighing you down energetically.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, internal work, foundations. Now for the fun stuff. Engaging with joy and creativity. The source calls these powerful energizers. Why?
It's like they tap into a different kind of energy source, doesn't it?
Yeah.
More intrinsic, maybe. Playfulness, creativity, joy. They remind us life isn't all serious demands.
A counterpoint to the daily grind.
Exactly, a vital counterpoint.
The source suggests consciously making time for joy, almost like scheduling fun.
Sometimes you have to, honestly, life gets busy.
That
But deliberately bringing in things that make you happy, make you laugh, even if they seem frivolous, it can have a huge impact on your overall energy.
nurturing your inner child, kind of.
Yeah, exactly that.
And creativity. The source says it's not just for artists.
Absolutely not. It's about self-expression. Finding new ways to do things. Could be cooking, gardening, solving a work problem creatively, writing, anything where you express yourself authentically.
And that sparks aliveness.
It really does. That feeling of ingenuity, of making something new,
Hmm.
it's inherently energizing.
Okay, last one in this section.
Yeah.
Gratitude. How does focusing on the good stuff boost energy?
It's subtle but powerful. Regularly noticing and appreciating the good things, big or small, it shifts your focus away from lack, away from problems,
Creates contentment.
a deeper sense of contentment, yeah. And that generates positive emotional energy. It's simple, but it really cultivates a more energetic, optimistic outlook.
Okay, so those are the practical steps from our source, really actionable stuff. But now, let's shift gears. Let's tackle that bigger, maybe trickier question we raised at the start.
Right. Is life energy actually a thing?
Mhm.
Our second source really dives into this, looking at it from, well, a bunch of different perspectives.
Yeah, this is where it gets fascinating and maybe a bit philosophical too. This idea of a fundamental life force. It's been debated for ages, hasn't it?
Centuries. Philosophers, scientists, spiritual traditions, everyone's weighed in at some point.
So let's start with modern biology. What's the scientific take on life energy?
Well, from a strict biological view, life is seen as this incredibly complex, organized system. There's a constant flow of biochemical energy.
Like ATP, metabolism, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Wow.
ATP is like the cell's energy currency. We get that energy from breaking down food. So from this perspective, life energy isn't some separate force. It's more like an emergent property,
Emergent property, meaning...
meaning it arises from the complexity. Like one water molecule isn't wet, right?
Yeah.
But billions together create wetness. Biology might see life energy. Similarly, it emerges from all those complex biochemical interactions in a living system. It's about the flow within the system.
Okay, so biology sees energy in life, but not necessarily a unique life energy. What about traditional views? Chi, prana, ki. Our source mentions those.
Right, there's come from traditional Chinese medicine, yoga, and Ayurveda from India, Japanese traditions. They all point to a subtle, pervasive energy, a life force,
That underlies everything living.
believed to be fundamental to life, health, well-being, yeah. And practices like acupuncture, breathing exercises, pranayama meditation, They're seen as ways to cultivate and balance this energy.
And the key difference is these energies aren't typically measured by Western science instruments.
Generally, no, not in the way we measure, say, electrical currents or heat. But people who practice these things often report very real effects on their health, their vitality.
So perceived effects, even without current scientific measurement.
Exactly. The subjective experience is significant for many people within those traditions.
Okay, then the source brings up something called the biofield. What's that? Could it bridge these perspectives?
This is interesting. The biofield is a scientific hypothesis. The idea is that living things produce a very complex, very low-frequency electromagnetic field around them. And the hypothesis suggests this field might be more than just a byproduct. It might actually play a role in how the organism regulates itself, how cells communicate.
So potentially a physical basis for these subtle energies.
Potentially. It's still very early research, very early stages, but it offers a possible framework to explore those traditional concepts using scientific methods. Maybe.
A potential bridge. Fascinating. The source then makes a really crucial point about the one energy itself. How does our definition shape the answer?
This is key. If you define energy only as what physics and biology can currently measure, heat, chemical bonds, electricity, then life uses energy but isn't a separate kind of energy.
But if we broaden the definition,
Right. If you include organizing principles like how does life maintain its complex structure against entropy, or if you include the subjective feeling of vitality that we all experience,
then the idea of a fundamental life energy seems more plausible.
it becomes more compelling, yeah. It really hinges on how you frame the question, what you include in your definition of energy.
Our source even mentioned a sort of podcast segment idea within it, highlighting that exact contrast. Molecular understanding versus the felt sense of being alive.
Yeah, that part really flags the potential gap, doesn't it? Between
Yeah.
knowing all the biochemical details and that intuitive feeling that there's something animating it all. It points to how cultures everywhere have tried to grasp this.
And there's a personal reflection in the source, too, about intuitively feeling vitality in others, how illness seems to dim that spark. It's a very human observation.
It is. That subjective sense is powerful. The author uses the analogy of a hurricane, this incredibly organized system of energy. Could life be something similar?
A coherent energy system?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then, the really big question. What role does consciousness play? Does it shape this energy, interact with it?
Whoa. That opens up huge questions.
Definitely.
The source helpfully lists some keywords, too, to keep these ideas straight. Biological energy, ATP, traditional concepts, chi, prana, emerging research, biofield.
Mm-hmm. And the philosophical side, too, vitalism versus mechanism. The old debate. Is there a special life force, or is it all just physics and chemistry?
Those keywords are a good map through these different lenses.
Yeah, they capture the main viewpoints in this ongoing conversation.
And finally, the source notes active research areas related to this. Biofield research, biophysics looking at energy transfer in cells, systems biology studying emergent properties.
Consciousness studies, research on traditional medicine, it shows this isn't a settled question. People are actively exploring these boundaries.
So it sounds like while a distinct, measurable life energy beyond known physics doesn't have mainstream scientific agreement yet.
Right, there's no consensus there.
Right.
But research keeps pushing our understanding of complex living systems, of subtle interactions.
And the question itself is valuable.
Absolutely. It reminds us how much we don't know, the profound mystery still surrounding what it actually means to be alive.
Okay, so bringing this all together, we've walked through some really practical ways to hopefully reignite your own inner spark. That was tuning inward, finding purpose, nurturing well-being, embracing joy, drawing from that first source.
Yeah, concrete actions you can take.
And then we took that bigger dive, exploring the very idea of life energy, looking through the lenses of biology, traditional wisdom, and some of the emerging science.
And it's crucial to remember finding and keeping your energy. It's a journey, right? The ebbs and flows. It's not always full throttle.
Absolutely. Some days the spark is bright, other days it needs a bit more tending.
Exactly.
So maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. Could our own feeling, that subjective sense of vitality, that undeniable aliveness, could that, and maybe those ancient ideas of a life force, could they hold clues? Clues that maybe modern science just hasn't fully grasped yet.
It's a provocative thought. Perhaps there's more to the energy of life than our current tools can measure or fully explain.
We invite you to think about that. Consider your own relationship with your inner spark and maybe ponder some of these deeper questions about the energy that animates us all.